Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I am so excited to be with you. We're back for season three, and I just can't wait to leave this moment with you. Tonight, we're receiving Messiah, and I can't wait for her to share her story with you. And we're gonna have a great time together. And to begin, I want to thank everybody who supported us and will give us their feedback, the comment. I'm so appreciative for all the love and support. And without further ado, I'm going to add our guest on the live.
Hi,
Hi, how are you? Good evening. I'm sorry. I had the
it's
camera the
okay.
wrong way.
How are you?
I am well. Can you hear me well?
Yes, I hear you totally fine. Can you
Good.
hear me?
I can. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you for being with us this afternoon, and I hope we're gonna have a great time. We're gonna find out a bit more about you,
Yeah.
and yeah, and then let's begin. So,
All
um,
right.
I'm going to let you introduce yourself for those who might not know who you are, and talk about what you do in the community.
Okay. So my name is Siah Hagin. I am a survivor author. I'm a mental health counselor. I'm a wellness advocate, but mostly I'm a survivor advocate. My passion work is working with women and men, but mostly women who have endured abuse and whether it's domestic violence, whether it's sexual abuse. I'm also a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. And yeah, that is primarily my work. I am an author. I'm the author of The Journey Continues Stories of a Survivor. It is a book that is written in poetry form about my story. I do have another book that is due to come out probably summertime next year. I had to delay the publish date a little while. And that is going to be a guide to help caretakers, parents, aunties, grandmas, whoever work with young girls to recognize signs of sexual abuse. So that is just a little bit of the work that I do.
Awesome. And next question, what inspired you to do everything that you do, like the books, the
Mhm.
company, where these ideas came from?
So I never planned to actually publish a book. So part of my healing journey as being a survivor was to write down my thoughts. So writing is very therapeutic for me. And so I would, as part of my healing, I would kind of just like journal my thoughts. And I noticed that a lot of times my writings were like poetry, and they came out in like poems. And I continued to just to write poems about what I was dealing with, what I was going through, my feelings. And so in 2018, when the book was released, like I would probably say the latter part of 2017, 2018, um, I had like just really praying about whether I should um, publish because I had like a number of poems. And I kind of felt God saying to me, like, you need to publish a book. And I was like, that wasn't me, right? Because I'm like the private, low key person. I'm not in the spotlight. Still like am adjusting to being in a spotlight, doing things like this, right? An interview. I'm just so not like used to that. But after just confirmation after confirmation, that's what happened. The journey continues was birthed. And I know that as far as being a survivor, I know the struggles that I went through to even finding my voice and still learning how to find my voice, right? And then helping women who are on their own journey of healing and trying to speak their truth. I'm waiting for that opportune time to kind of share what they've been carrying for so long. So I would probably say that's what inspired me.
Thank you so much for sharing this with us. And what is unique about your company? Because there's a couple of company, myself included, who help survivors. Um, so what's unique about what you're doing, would you say?
So I would probably say, there are probably many survivors, right? As we have talked and before, and you have shared with on my platform in regards to your story. So I think the fact that everybody's story of survival is unique. Because everybody, if we're talking about abuse, right, sexual abuse, domestic violence, everybody's story, even though we may go through similar things, our
Yeah,
experiences are different, right? The way that we have um, made strides to overcome and our healing journey is different. So I think that makes it unique in itself. And so my story, although it may sound similar to yours, is not the same. So I think we're all in unique in that, and even how we deliver that, um, it can be unique. So my passion work is like helping survivors find that voice, and that may be through a workshop, facilitating a workshop, speaking an encouraging word. So the delivery may be the same, but how we do that delivery is different because
definitely.
our experience is different.
Exactly. And I know obviously, coming out, sharing your story, none of these were easy in the beginning. And
Yeah.
and I know because I went through it myself. So
Yeah.
next question I'll ask you, if you don't mind sharing with us some of the challenges you had at the beginning, and at the same time, what pushed you to keep going?
So one of the major challenges for me was particularly birthing the journey was because, like I just mentioned, I was a really quiet, shy, reserved person. And I did kind of like a wrestling with God. It's like, if this is really what you want me to do.
Yeah,
And because I knew that once my story was out there, it was going to be out there for everyone to see, to read. Um, and so that was like my struggle with birthing the journey. My struggle is in regards to like accepting the fact that I was sexually abused, right? Because I was sexually abused on two occasions, not just one. And both of them were people either that was in my family or really close to my family. So I think understanding the impact. So it wasn't until I was probably a young adult in the working world that I really understood the impact of the abuse. I felt like because I would share it with certain people that I felt
hmm,
comfortable sharing it, that
yeah,
I was okay. And that's all it required. Like I knew enough not to keep it to myself, right? And I knew it wasn't healthy. It wasn't healthy to not talk about it, but I didn't realize the impact. So that was like really, really the biggest struggle for me,
mhm,
understanding the magnitude and the lasting effects of abuse, right? So we think, well, the incident happened because you'll hear people say, oh, it happened so many years ago.
yeah,
Why are you still
yeah,
focusing on it?
exactly.
Like healing from trauma, from abuse is a lifelong process. And people don't understand that. They
Yeah,
just think, oh, because it has happened so many years ago, that you should be over it by now. And that is such a myth.
yeah,
Um, and it's a process because we are living this life, we're experiencing life, and things are coming up. We may be triggered.
yeah,
And triggers could be you see somebody, you hear something, you
anything.
smell something. It could
Yeah,
be anything that will trigger you and send you back to that place of abuse. So it's like it's a lifelong journey of healing. And along the journey, prayerfully, what we're doing is we're holding on to resources. Number one, we're holding on to God. Number two, that we're taking tools and resources that we can use to make maybe a triggering circumstance not as severe as it was so many years ago. So that is just a little bit of my struggle. So, but I would probably say two major things is one, understanding the magnitude of the abuse, and two, realizing that when the journey was birthed, it was going to
Mhm.
be for
Yeah.
everyone to see and to read.
Yeah. And you mentioned something very interesting. You talk about triggers, right? And sometimes you think you're done with the situation, it's over until something come up, like you mentioned, and then it brings back all the memories.
It does.
And you
Yeah.
react like a crazy person, and people on the outside, because they don't know what you're going through inside, they don't always understand, your reaction, why you're behaving the way you behave.
Hmm.
So, would you mind share with us one thing that you happen to sometimes do when you find yourself in a situation like this? How you handle it, how you compose yourself, how you're able to move on, and etc.
Well, I would probably say about I have some general triggers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I have some specific, really like this happened on this day trigger. So I
Mm-hmm.
would probably say a specific trigger is probably about 2 or 3 years ago. I was going to the GYN. Now, people who have gone through sexual abuse, that could be a possible trigger. Like once you're used to, and I said, "Hey, Tay Till, how are you?" I was just I kind of laughed at myself because when I saw him come on, I shared this on his show as well. I was on the way to my GYN, and I went to the wrong office. We know how doctors have multiple sites that they're working, right? And I went to the wrong office, and they told me that my doctor wasn't there, but I had like an emergency situation and I had to see someone. So they were like, "Oh, you can see so and so doctor." And it just so happens that this so and so doctor was was a male, right?
Oh my
And
God.
so my GYN was a female, and I'm not saying that
Hmm.
I could not, because I've had male doctors before, but
Yeah.
I was used to them. I was accustomed to them. So when they told me this, I was automatically triggered. I had to get myself all the way together. I visualized myself like flipping over chairs and breaking out on the desk and telling people
Oh
off. And
my
I was like,
God.
you got to get yourself all the way together because this is nobody's fault but yourself
Mhm.
because you went to the wrong office, right?
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
that would probably be like one really significant trigger that I had. And I had to talk myself off the ledge. I had to like
Yeah.
really like practice
Mm.
positive self-talk, tell
Yeah.
myself I'm okay. You're safe, you're calm. And then I did well throughout the whole exam. And then on the way home, I called one of my girlfriends just to kind of like
Mhm.
listen.
That.
This is what happened to me. So that would be like an example of a specific trigger.
Hmm.
I would probably say my general triggers is trust, right?
Mm.
It's like a big deal. I don't know about other survivors. I believe like trust is an issue for a lot of survivors. So in general, it's like I don't trust very easily. And
Mm.
I know that comes from,
Yeah.
from my abuse because both of my abusers were like really close, either like I said, family or really close to the family. And so they had already gained the trust of
Plus.
everyone in the family. So trust continues to be my struggle and, something that I continue to work through.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like trust as well is a big one for me because I have to constantly remind myself, this is not the same person, like you got to give
Yes.
them the chance, like put yourself in their shoes. It's
Yes.
like you mentioned, it's a everyday process. It's a never ending process.
Yeah. It is definitely a struggle that you have to be mindful about and just say, like you said, this is not everybody's not like this, right? And then for
Hmm.
me, I have to kind of look at the person's history, or the history I have with that person. This person has never done anything to you before to hurt you. So why would they do it now? So even though you're taking it intentional, like they tried to hurt you, let's look back and see. That's not what their
Yeah.
history says. So it's really like trying to like talk to yourself and, to
Hmm.
calm yourself, knowing that that is, something that you struggle with. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing this with us. How was it like working towards the pandemic? I know it was a big thing for us being in quarantine. Some of us still had to go to work. Like depending on
Hmm.
what you were doing. But how did that impacted you? You know, especially having that history. Did it had any special impact
Hmm.
on your life, your mental health?
Wow. So there's so many layers to that question, right? So I work as a school counselor for the Department of Education. So everybody knows that the school system shut down, right? And we
Hmm.
had to go into lockdown mode, right? So I was servicing kids, doing my counseling, and I was doing that all through Zoom. Now, I live by myself, right? So I always say, and I've had this with conversations with many of my friends, there is a level of depression, sadness that kicks in when you cannot leave your house and you live by yourself. Because all it is you, yourself, and and I,
Oh,
right? So it's like I had to struggle through that, what I found out, there was no separation from work and home because it was in
mm,
the same place. So I had to intentional put boundaries in place to separate that. So at so and so time, you're going to close the computer and you're
yeah,
not going to continue to do work, right? I had to go out for walks for my mental health, just to kind of like feel the air on my face and the wind blowing, because it's like, if not, I felt myself kind of going into this sad, really sad place. For the journey, it was kind of different because it was like a year or so after the book was launched, right? And I was so excited about doing vendoring events and meeting people.
yeah,
And one of the wonderful things about doing vendoring events is people sharing their story.
yes,
And that's what I love most about being a vendor, right? Having my book and starting that conversation, because honestly, in our Black and Browns communities, we don't talk about this. It's like a big family secret. Shh, we ain't talking about it,
exactly.
right? And once somebody opens the door, it's like that person will start to share. And I kind of feel like that's what the journey is. And even this book is coming, it's going to be a door opener for people to feel okay to share. So I really miss the vendoring events. And even through the pandemic with my own job, I am a personable interaction, face to face person. And so the pandemic did not help me. And I'm already an introvert, right? So
Hmm.
introverts don't mind being by themselves, but they like to have a choice. And
Exactly.
the
And
pandemic,
options.
yep, the option, right? The pandemic took away that choice. And I was like, there's no choice. You may like to be by yourself, but you like the option of going out sometimes. Yeah, the choice was going.
Exactly.
You no longer had choice. So those were just like some of my struggles through the pandemic.
And I'm pretty sure a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you share with us something that people tend to misunderstand about what you do, about your business and the book? I know one of them, like you mentioned earlier, I only remember because I had that a lot, is when they say stuff like, "Oh, it happened so long ago. Why you keep talking about it?" But
Yeah.
besides that, is there anything else you think people seems to misunderstand about what you're doing?
I think there's a general misunderstanding about survivors that we want to kind of take over. And when I say that, I don't know why, but I just kind of related to, I don't know if it's the same thing, but for people with disabilities, right? Or people who are in the LGBTQ community, that if you think about those populations in general, they just want to be heard and recognized, right? And I think a lot of times when it comes to the survivor community, people who have not experienced it, have not experienced being a survivor, and I'm talking about like mostly of abuse, right? Because we all have survived something, or does not know anybody who had this experience. It's almost like you want somebody to kind of have sympathy for you, kind of baby you. You want to kind of like take over, and that's not the case. I think we all want to be recognized, we all want to be acknowledged, and we all want to be heard. And that's just what survivors, I think in general, they just want. They want to be heard, they want to be recognized. They also, just to push it a little further, they want laws and policies in place that's going to protect them, right? And we're starting to see that change a little, but there's always
Absolutely.
more work to do. Yeah.
And I also feel I always refer to that as because we have invisible scars. I think if it's because it's not visible, people tend to feel like or think it's nothing or it's not there. Just because you can see that I'm suffering or I'm
Hmm.
bleeding, but, that doesn't mean that I'm not hurt and the pain is not here and I'm not dealing with something. It's not because it's not seen on the outside. A lot of us, we get up in the morning, we talk to ourselves, we smile, and then we get out there and do what we had to do. And at the same time, we're dealing with a lot inside of people. They're not aware. And like you said, they think because this happened so long, not everybody understand what come with the concept of triggers. It's not
Hmm.
because anything can remind you of something and get a reaction out of it. And the fact that some of us as well never get an acknowledgement of what happened to us, it's like we feel like we were responsible, we are still responsible, we never pass that. And you see the other person, they move with their life, right? No
Hmm.
effect whatsoever. So that make you somehow feel less of a human. It's like you don't matter and
Yeah.
you have to deal with this every day. Like, is something wrong with me? What did I do wrong? Why
Yeah.
this keep happening to me? Since the other person had no consequences, so maybe that was my fault. So it's a lot of dynamic that, if you're not in it, you never live it, that you don't necessarily understand.
Definitely. There's a lot of blame, a self blame, right? There's a lot of guilt, a lot of shame affiliated with survivors. So, one of the things that I want to say in regards to the pandemic is that there are people who, particularly with domestic violence, and we know that domestic violence and sexual abuse, like they are really connected because some women and some men, because men are abused as well. Not only are they physically abused, but they are sexually abused as well. So they are connected. But what I want to say regarding the pandemic is that there are so many survivors or so many men and women who are going through, who have been subjected to abuse. But because we were on lockdown, right,
Yeah.
we can't even imagine what these individuals have been subjected to, right? Um, there are so many like centers and advocacy places that they were able to go to prior to the pandemic. But when that
Mhm.
pandemic, and I was just saying how I live alone, right? Imagine living with an abuser.
Yeah. And I
That's
remember it
very
even
traumatic.
made the news. I don't remember the exact numbers, but the numbers went up during the pandemic because
Yes,
these
they
people,
did.
like you mentioned, they used to go to work, go outside and everything, but now they were stuck at home 24/7 with that other person. And a lot of them didn't have any other options, nowhere else to go, no people. So it
Yeah.
was very hard.
Yeah.
Okay, so next question is,
Mhm.
what would you say, when did you first realize that you wanted to be a writer? What could you try? I mean, I think you answered already in the beginning, right?
Um, yeah, I never, well, okay, I would go back a little bit and say when I was in school, like I enjoyed ELA, like ELA writing. I really enjoyed that. When I was in undergrad, I did write for a college newspaper, right? Um, so I guess I always did have a thing for writing, but I never thought that like, hey, I'm going to write and I'm going to publish. That was like never my thing, right? Um, and also, I kind of feel like I didn't do it. Now, some people may have a problem with this. I didn't do it to make money, right?
Mm,
I did it to to allow my voice to be heard, to allow my voice and what I went through to be shared to aid in someone else's healing, right? So it was like, if I went through this and all the struggles I went through on my healing journey, imagine what other people went through. So, but I guess I always enjoyed writing.
Yeah, thank you for sharing this. And like you said, a lot of people, I guess I had that issue with some of my friends, right? When you say you had the push, the main goal wasn't to make money. It was a way to share your story and helping other people and make them realize they are not alone. There's other people who's going through this every
Yeah,
day. And
yeah.
yeah.
Now it's good to make money. I do plan on
No,
making money.
right?
Let me
Because
just say
there's
that.
nothing wrong with making money. All right.
Yeah.
So, next question. What would you
Mhm.
say is your biggest accomplishment today? What's the thing you're most proud of that you have done so far? I know you do so many different things.
Uh, hmm. I would probably say that the journey has to be one of my, probably the biggest accomplishment, or if not one of the biggest accomplishment, because it pushed me to the forefront, and I wasn't that person. Like it forced me to have a voice, to make my voice be heard. It's not like I didn't have a voice before, but it pushed me to the forefront when I was used to being in the last pew or the last seat, right? And sitting and never saying anything, and just kind of like nodding and observing. I'm a really good observer, right? So I always enjoyed that space. And God was like, no, not anymore. Um, so the journey changed all of that. And I say all the time, the journey changed my life, and it changed it for the better. And I still have my struggles, right? Because I
Mm-hmm.
want to be that girl to sit on the last pew and to sit back and to observe and not say anything. But, I can't do it but for so long, because it's something inside of me that's like, okay, yep, it's time.
That's
Let's go,
good.
right? So that would probably be my biggest accomplishment.
And see, yeah, besides working, right?
Uh-huh.
What else do you do? What do you do when you're not working?
Uh, so I have to say that I love mental health. I love the whole wellness, the mental health. I love all of that. So it's a lot of times I probably am overworking and not realizing I'm overworking because I'm
Mm-hmm.
immersed in this, and I believe in it so much. So I have to kind of pull myself away from it, right? But even though I'm away from it, my brain is always going. It's like it's still moving, and I have to kind of like disconnect. So one of the things that I really, really enjoy doing, and I really do it in the summertime, is walking. Like, so I love taking walks. I love there's certain parts of exercises that I love. So I love like jumping rope. I love just being in nature. Like, so that's one of my loves. I love writing every now and then, right? I don't do it as much as I did before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but sometimes and I've said this several times on my platforms, like when I'm ruminating, right? When my I'm stuck on something and I can't get it out of my head, I find that not only if I pray about it, but if I write it down, it kind of is a release for me. So I try to do that. And, of course, like most girls do, I go hang out with the girlfriends. I have brunch. I try to travel as much as I can. I haven't been able to do that so much lately. And I love reading. And most of my books are like on mental health. They're on like healthy relationships, and some of them are, a good portion of them are Christian based, right? But I love the whole theme of mental health and wellness, because I feel like that we always, particularly if we're in this kind of work of supporting survivors, and the work that I do outside of that, I feel like I can never master that. I don't think any of us have arrived.
Yeah.
So, yep, those are just some of the things that I do.
And what would you say is the best compliment you received so far? And, very inspiring.
The
That was like
best
so
compliment.
memorable.
Um, I think the best compliment that I can have is when I am doing a vendoring event or a speaking engagement and somebody comes over to me and they share their experience. Like that is so motivating for me. That, as they say, that fills my cup, right? It encourages me. It helps me to continue to do the work. I will say one thing that was such a big compliment, which is one of the reasons why um, in March I did a toiletry drive I'm doing a drive now for women in shelters. And it's like, shampoo, deodorant, all the essential things. And I happened to work at an elementary school, and I did not realize that when the place that I delivered these bags, I delivered 50 bags to this women's shelter. I did not realize that one of my parents of the kids that I service was in the shelter.
Wow.
And I would probably say I dropped the bags off at the end of March and June when the kids were getting out because this particular student was graduating.
Wow.
Um, I had I was like the MC for the graduation service. And as me being me, like not trying to be in the limelight, I flew upstairs, changed my clothes, and I went back in my room. And this parent found me. They
Wow.
kept asking for me. And she came up to me in my office and she said, I was about to give up. She has two boys. She said, I was about to give up and I was about to turn custody over to
Oh my God.
their father. And she said, when I got your bag and I got, because there was a poem in there, a woman of worth that was in the bag with the toiletry. She said, I knew that there was hope and it allowed me to hold on just a little longer. And she said the following week, her housing came. And
Wow.
so I'm almost in tears, like whenever I tell
Oh
the
my God,
story.
you're making me so emotional. I'm trying to hold
Yeah.
it together.
But this woman is the reason
Hmm.
why I'm doing the toiletry drive again. And she's the reason why that I will continue to do the toiletry drive. Um, that is the compliment. That is the push that that says to me, you need to keep moving. You
Yeah.
need to keep moving forward because you don't know who needs it. You don't know who you're going to impact. So that is the
Even
biggest
if it's
compliment.
one person at the time, that's
Yeah.
all that matters.
Yep.
That was a very deep story.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
sharing it with us. Um, if you could go back in time and talk
Hmm.
to your 18-year-old self, what would you tell her?
You matter. Your voice matters. Um, you are worthy. When I was probably a little younger, and probably up until 18, like maybe my second year of college, I suffered with low self-esteem. Like,
Mm,
I didn't think I was worthy. I went through a phase that I didn't think I was pretty enough. So I would probably say that to my 18-year-old self.
yeah. I'm getting emotional because I'm having so many deep feeling and deep thought. Okay, so where do you see yourself in a couple of years?
Where do I see myself in a couple of years? Um, I have this vision that I feel that God has given me. So number one, my book, right? So my next book, which is a guide, um, that's definitely going to be in a couple of years. I don't know if I'm going to write after that.
Hmm.
I feel like that was just a natural progression of the journey because
Hmm.
whenever I went to like speaking engagements that was like a natural, I would share my story. So that book is really my full story. And intertwined with that is warning signs and things you need to be you need to look out for, signs of in your daughter, your niece, your granddaughter. And I felt like that was just a natural progression because, I was abused at 12 and 14 years of age.
Mm.
So I don't know if there's going to be another book after that, but um, I have this vision of I've had two virtually already, no, one virtually and one in person Survivor Sanctuary Conference. And I have this vision of a group full of women, full of survivors, with various workshops and facilitators. And I would I would love for that to happen and to happen and to reach a massive amount of women, right? To have that safe haven for them, where they can come and be encouraged and be prayed for and be uplifted and find resources. Like the conference would be resources, it would be facilitators, it would be you know um, a place there where someone can pray for them and like different things. And so that is my vision. I just want to continue to do the work that I feel that God has called me to do. And I know that we feel like this is a business, but I think I learned probably over the couple of years, it's more of a ministry, right? So that's my vision.
And what you said, the last thing you said is making me so emotional because I was talking to one of my board member and I was telling her how like how I wanted to put together a 3-day conference and then gather people together, and I had lay out all the different activities. Like
Yeah,
maybe I don't know, maybe that's God putting us together.
yeah.
Something we
I
should
truly
definitely
believe
get
that
together
I'm not going
after
to do it alone.
and
It's
work.
going to be,
Yes.
and one of the things that I'm doing now is I'm connecting with different people who are doing survival work. I would love at some point to have a directory or a network of people who are
Yeah.
just doing survivor work. And, we are bringing all of these women together,
Together.
for this awesome conference. And I believe it is possible. And that is
Because
like
like
one of
you
my visions.
mentioned a bit earlier, we all have a common ground, but our stories is so different at so many different level, and
Yeah.
everybody can learn something and relate to one or another in one way or another way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely think this can be very impactful and it's very much needed because every day, like as you start talking to people, the
Hmm.
amount of human being that survive these things are so tremendous. It's
Yeah.
so heartbreaking, and it keeps happening.
Yep. It does.
So
Unfortunately, it just keeps happening. We're in October, right? October is
yeah,
Domestic Violence Awareness. And, I understand that there are many things that need to be recognized in our society, but I think a lot of people forget that October is Domestic Violence
yeah,
Awareness Month. We're so focused on breast cancer, and I get it because
yeah,
my mom is a breast cancer survivor. So, yeah, I'm excited about that too, but I'm also excited about Domestic Violence
yeah.
Awareness Month and raising awareness and, having people recognize the signs. And, one of the myths of domestic violence is how come she just doesn't leave? Um,
Listen, if it only was
so
that easy,
if
right?
only it was that easy. And I say this all the time, and I will continue to say it. Like, people do not understand that once you make that decision to leave, it increases your chances of being severely hurt or killed.
Killed, definitely killed. Majority of people they get killed on their way
Yes,
out.
on
So,
their way out. So,
and if you have
October.
children, and it's just a whole different ballgame.
Yep. Um, yeah.
So, what advice would you give to anyone who's currently listening and is either dealing with, you know, the same issue, whether it's, they're being abused sexually, mentally, emotionally, or whether they currently going through the situation or they only know somebody who might be going through the situation.
So I want to say that you are not alone. You're not the only person that has gone through this. And I understand that it's devastating, but there is hope and there is so many resources that you can tap into. If you are a DV survivor, one of the things that I always say is that it is not for us to tell somebody what to do. It is not for us to tell somebody to leave their situation because we're not in that person's shoes and we don't know what that person is dealing with. And they're already being told what to do by their abuser, right? So we don't need to be another person. But if they want to, if they need to know that help is available to them and tap into resources. I know you have resources on Beyond the Abuse. I have resources on Siah Hagin. Um, uh, Safe Haven, Safe Horizon is also another resource. So there is help available. You can reach out to any one of these platforms and find support because you are not by yourself.
Definitely not. And where can they find you after this? If anybody want to reach out, they have any questions or they even
Mm-hmm.
want to buy a book.
Yeah. So you can follow me on my platform, Siah Hagin. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I have a YouTube channel that I am starting to put content on. TikTok is like, yeah, we're trying to get there too. I have a little bit of
Oh
TikTok.
my God.
And I have to remember, because let me tell you, TikTok is a challenge, okay? I can't keep
You're
up.
not the only one. I think I just gave up. Sorry.
Yeah, I can't keep up, but I have a website, siahbehagan.com. I just want to share a couple of things that I'm doing. I mentioned the toiletry drive, which is going to
Hmm.
go to October 15th. I may have
Okay.
to push it to the end of October, and that's just basically donating toiletries for women in shelters. So if you're interested, if you live in the New York area and you want to donate, please message me. I will come and pick up your donation. If you want to donate monetarily, you can cash at me and Siah at Siah B. Hagan. That's my cash app. Um, uh, I think and I still have healing conversations that kicked off last month. So every month I will be featuring a guest. I am looking for a domestic violence survivor who wants to share their story. I do have someone that I am interviewing for the month of October because October is also bully prevention month. So I have
Yeah.
a guest for that, but I would love to interview a survivor. So if you are interested, please message me.
All right. Thank you so much. So I had for you guys today. I don't know if anybody had any question, they can put in the chat. Otherwise, I want to thank you so much for being with us tonight. And I wanted to tell you, even to myself, you're an inspiration because you're
Thank
so
you.
persistent. So, you know, little thing that people might not know. Sometimes you get up and you question yourself. You're asking yourself, is that
Absolutely.
really matter? Am I really like changing something?
Yep.
And you don't feel like moving on, moving forward, or keep going. And then you look at somebody else and they're so persistent. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay,
Yeah.
so you know, so I want to thank you for being so persistent and so focused. And
Thank you for having me. And that's why it's
always,
so important for us who do the survivor work that we stay connected. So
yeah,
not only are we trying to encourage other survivors, but we are also it's important for us to uplift and encourage one another. So I also have another platform, and that is called Sanctuary for Survivors, and that is on Instagram, and that is for survivors, both men and women, and I post content there. It's very similar content to Siah Hagin when I post, but I wanted to have that platform because that is the platform that I'm able to connect with other survivors, and that's the platform that I'm connecting to survivors who are like um, agencies, centers, people who are doing survivor work, and I'm able to find a couple of people there, and so I will hope that I will continue to do so.
Well, thank you so much. Keep going, stay encouraged, and
Thank
I'm
you.
pretty sure you're changing a lot of people like of life. And like I said, you having an impact on myself personally.
Thank
So
you.
thank you. Very grateful to have you. And to everybody who's watching, thank you for joining us. I hope you were able to learn something. If you have any question, comment, do not hesitate to reach out either to Siah or myself. Put the
Yeah.
information on the post a bit later, and I'll see you guys this coming Friday. We're receiving another guest, so I can't wait to share for her to share a story with you again. And yeah, that's it. Have a blessed night, everybody. Until
Good
we meet
night.
again. I
Bye.
don't know if you have any last word.
No, I think I shared everything. Thank you for everyone who joined. Thank you for your time. Hey, Manisha, I see you. T-Tail, I saw you. Thank you for joining, and everybody else for supporting.
Thank you. Have a good night, guys.
Have a good night.